A few years ago, I made a video of me one-shotting every single dragon, and I thought there may not be another challenge that I could take up for PvE content that is worth my interest, even with me using the more unrecognizable, less powerful characters. It wasn't until after the release of Awakener is where things started changing, and that's when it hit me. A year later, that is, where I could expand on that idea into something even more ridiculous. Is it possible to one-shot all of the dragons using just only AoEs? Well, going back to Awakener, her 3C AoE is very unique. It has a property where it does 300% more damage to any enemies without any soldiers, while multiplying its damage when it hits the same enemy with 8% more to enemies with their talent debuff. Even with their talent giving more damage and having a high base int stat, we'll need the right equipment for the job. The two most important ones are Miracle Staff for more AoE damage and Star Crown for the crit damage. The armor and accessory are irrelevant as long as I have a high int roll on these equips. I also went with the Magic Enchant for consistency and damage. All of these gears still won't cut it. We need to assemble the right teams. The two characters that I immediately thought of was Joshua and Varna buffing AoE damage by 20% for a total of 40%. Next, I thought about Rosalia with their sword increasing all stats by 10%. I could have went with Lanford who has a higher stat boost, but he was only 4 stars at the time. But ultimately, I scrapped them in favor of Imelda for 3C to apply the extra crits, and her healing could trigger the Star Crown. Then the last one was very difficult to sort out. Even with all of these buffs, I knew it wasn't going to be enough. Not only did I need buffs, but I also needed debuffs. One equip that came to mind was Charon to increase the damage that the enemy took, but I also needed magic defense down. Nothing came to mind without me having to intentionally deal damage. There was Awakener's 1C to apply it, but at a random chance. Same thing with the Charon. As I was mentally preparing myself for the RNG struggle, I came across someone that would solve my issue. An unsung hero, Shinpachi. Not only is he a really amazing tank, but his talent allows him to apply a multitude of debuffs after his turn and when the enemy engages him. Not just any debuffs, the ones that affect stats. So this includes the 2 debuffs I was looking for, so this makes him the perfect addition to the team. Having all of this, it still won't be enough. The last ingredient that I need is a Covenant. Most of the Covenant gimmicks involves dealing damage, and we don't want any of that because we want to see Awakener be able to one-shot the dragons. So there was only one that made sense to use, Balder. It could apply a buff that greatly boosts their damage based on the skill cooldown, and since Awakener's 3C is a 4-turn cooldown, her damage will be boosted tremendously. With everything ready, the Sunday Dragon was our first obstacle, having 350,000 HP and mediocre magic defense. The setup into this is quite elementary. Joshua uses Faction Buff and stay near Awakener to apply Royal Crown for the extra damage. For Varna near Awakener, Imelda's 3C hits her and apply healing to trigger the Star Crown. Waited to use the talent debuff until I was ready to attack. Once Shinpachi applied the necessary debuffs that we want, we call upon Balder for its buffs. There was also the 30% stats up from the Secret Realm Blessing. Now, everything at hand. Once everything was ready, we witnessed the final result. I couldn't believe it. All of this actually worked. With that being a success, I was confident that this was going to be a smooth ride. The Fire Dragon was next. It was a total pushover, having an abysmal 180,000 HP and low magic defense, but it was nothing. And fun fact, this is actually the weakest dragon. The Ice Dragon was a huge step up as it had a higher stats, but with mage unit dealing super effective damage against it, it was no big deal. Then comes the Thunder Dragon. With its slightly higher HP and much lower magic defense, the huge creature wouldn't go down. So over and over, I tried so many times, but to no avail. Hours and hours on end and still nothing. I was starting to lose hope, thinking that maybe the Thunder Dragon isn't possible to one-shot. But there was one attempt that came very close. And this was the hope that I needed to believe that this could work. A hypothesis that I created was that I needed to be stupidly lucky to have at least 5 of the meteors to crit, maybe 6 if I'm unlucky with the RNG damage numbers. But I wasn't going to give up. I was determined to make this work. And to do so, I had all meta take Shinpachi's place. Not only could she apply an abundant amount of debuffs, but she was able to do the one thing that Shinpachi couldn't, being able to lower crit resistance. Odds of this was still incredibly low, but I was willing to do anything to accomplish it. And much to my stubbornness, this took days, weeks, then after a month, I still couldn't beat it. It always just barely survives. So I finally came to terms that this wasn't going to be it. I caved and used Varna's 3C to apply a debuff so that it took more AoE damage. And then literally right after that, this happened. After some long, grueling hours, the Thunder Dragon was finally put down. But this, it didn't satisfy me. I had to make 2 interactions for it to finally go down. I didn't feel proud of it. And with my stubborn nature, I couldn't let it slide. I wanted Awakener to put it from 100 HP to 0. After seeing that, it made me realize that I needed to re-evaluate the composition of this team. Joshua and Varna. Before starting all of this, I questioned myself if their AoE buff even stacked on top of each other. With the success of killing the first 3 dragons, I was convinced, but now, that question returns to linger in my head. So to answer my question, I replaced Varna with Sissy White for a 30% int boost and being able to summon an infantry soldier that has a command effect for 10% more. Then, on the first attempt, having everything set up, we await the final conclusion. I had no words. I couldn't believe it. I was dumbfounded. After a long, grueling month, I had accomplished what I sought out. I was happy and satisfied, but my victory was overshadowed by my discovery. Finding out that Joshua's and Varna's AoE buff did not stack this whole time. So, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you like this.